Today we're with Nero Bellum from Psyclon Nine. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Nero Bellum from Psyclon Nine. I have other projects, Not My God, and Skull with Tim Skull from Rally Manson, came at PM. I work on film projects from time to time, stuff on Netflix, AMC. I'm a bit of a synth nerd. I have my own modular company called Sacrament, and that's probably the most interesting things about me, I suppose. I don't know. I rescue reptiles. I have like a few giant monitors in the house.
Oh, do you
Um,
really?
I do, yeah. I have a
Oh,
5 foot Dumerils monitor, and then I have a like 3.5 foot Asian water monitor. But he's still a baby, so they get up to around 7 feet, like 200 pounds sometimes. So
whoa.
they're big, but
And
in the apocalypse, it's going to look pretty good,
yeah,
having gigantic lizards on leashes and AK-47s. I
and
think
they
it's going
still
to be
walk
important.
around. Are they loose in the house?
No, no, they have like giant enclosures, and I do let them free roam from time to time, but I like to supervise them because I also have a Mojave Desert Tortoise that free roams the house, and it
Wow.
literally showed up on my front door. I just walked outside one day and this giant tortoise was in my driveway. And I'm like, well, you came to the right place. I have the whole setup. And she's just been living in my house ever since, just kind of wandering. She made herself a little home next to my fireplace, and she, she just
Wow.
she ruminated there for the last few months and just woke up and started eating.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, probably about 20 to 25 reptiles in the house right now, I
No
think.
way.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And how do you
The
cope when you go on tour?
So I actually have someone that comes over
Wow.
every day to watch them when I'm on tour. Um, my neighbor actually breeds like dubia roaches and stuff, so like feeders for reptiles. It just worked out that way, where the guy that supplies the local shops happened to be my neighbor, and we happened to become friends, and he's totally cool with coming over and like watching my animals.
And what does he breed, Nero?
uh, Cockroaches.
Oh God.
Um, Well, I mean, they got to eat, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of like the smaller lizards, like bearded dragons and stuff like that, they eat cockroaches, and so I got like three bearded dragons, three mountain horned dragons, an Egyptian sandfish, two ocellated Uromastyx, the Asian water monitor, the Dumerils monitor, the Mojave desert tortoise, two axolotls. And what happens is like there's a local shop that I've become friends with the people that work there, and people will buy these reptiles and then decide after a month they don't want them anymore. The upkeep's too expensive or whatever it is, and they just surrender them. They give them away, and the shop doesn't know what to do with them half the time. So they'll hit me up like, "Hey, I got this." Monitor, or I got this, bearded dragon, or whatever it is, you want to take care of them? Like, yeah, sure. I got 15 Madagascar giant hissing roaches right before the tour, that someone who had bought these as pets, I guess, and just didn't want to keep them anymore. So yeah, I'd say a big portion of my morning is like taking care of all these different animals and
Wow.
rehabbing most of them.
Are they all
So,
silent or do they make noise?
well, the hissing roaches, they sound kind of like a turbo spooling on like a car, when the turbo engages.
Yeah.
That's um the monitors can hiss and kind of growl a bit, but mostly they're silent, I'd say.
Wow. It's incredible. I've heard of people have like one or two snakes or something, but that's that's
I,
different.
I I love snakes so much, but I have a real hard time with like feeding the rodents. I can't do it.
No.
It's kind of strange. I'm vegan, you know, so
Oh,
it's weird to feed insects to the reptiles, but you know, that's what they eat. You know, they can't make
oh,
a conscious decision to become vegan. You know, and some of the vegan people that try to convert, you know, carnivore animals, it's crazy to me. I'm not one of those people. Um, you know, and if you're going to take on responsibility of a living creature, it's like you got to treat it the way it needs to be treated. And
wow,
if that means I have to be uncomfortable from time to time, you know, then so be it.
yeah, wow. Because I've always thought of that where vegans are trying to kind of change a dog into eating only vegetables, and you think,
Yeah, dude. You know, I know there's studies that show that maybe it can work out, and hey, maybe over time, you know, dogs are invention. You know, it's like we you know took in a stray wolf, and you know, 100,000 years later, we have Chihuahuas. You know,
yeah,
what I mean, so I guess I can maybe understand the science of maybe kind of getting the animals on less meat, on the dogs at least. Um, you know, and maybe over time they can adapt to that because I think they're opportunistic just like human beings. But yeah, I mean, if you go back to the wild, I mean, you don't see wolves eating fucking leaves or
oh
grass.
no,
I mean,
oh, there's a nice orange.
yeah. I've never seen a wolf pick an orange.
No, no, it's usually something living they go for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can understand that. You started Cyclone Nine in 2000.
Yeah. I'd say things got really started around 2002. That's when we played our first shows. Um, I think it was more conceptualized in 2000, and I was trying to get the project started. Um, you know, I got my first drum machine and my first synthesizer. These little Korg electride things.
Yeah,
They're kind of the first little, you know, all-in-one boxes. You know, little programmable synth, little programmable drum machine, a little sampler, and I got those. You know, not knowing that you could get like, you know, a computer with a DAW or anything like that. And just read through the manuals and taught myself how to, you know,
really? Wow.
create music. Yeah, just sat there in my bedroom, just trying to figure it out, you know. And that's what you hear on the first album. Those are literally the first songs I ever wrote, period. You know, kind of, you could almost look at it like the demo, you know. And then with the second album, I sold all my gear and like bought like a new thing, a Yamaha RS 7000. It's kind of like one of the Akai samplers. It's
Yeah.
like a all-in-one kind of workstation, and you know, I did that second album, and then by the third album, I sold that and built up like a PC, you know, to actually use a DAW, and you know, got into all the Native Instrument stuff, Contact, and of course, I had cracked copies, you know, so I didn't have any of the factory content. I didn't even know that Contact and Battery had factory content, so I just went around my house, just recording every sound I could find, you know, just the laundry machines and cars, exhaust, and you know, just vacuum cleaners, whatever I could, you know, dropping shit on the floor. Um, and then that's what you hear with Crown Like Fornicator. That and I borrowed an Nexus virus from my friend Gary from Dismantled, and you know, made a couple patches, recorded those, and then everything was just in Contact. Um,
Wow.
you know, and then you know, it comes full circle, right? Because you know, you start with all this hardware and it's like fuck, I don't want all this, man. You know, it's like I can get on a computer and it's so much more convenient, easier, and faster,
Yeah.
you know. And then at some point that gets fucking boring. You're like, well, I miss the analog stuff. I miss the real shit. I miss having my, you know, hand on a knob, and I'm like changing things in real time, and then things get wacky and you end up with a wall full of modules. So but yeah, you know, you're going to come up with stuff here that you're never going to come up with in the box, and vice versa. You're going to come up with stuff in the computer that you're not going to be able to come up with on, you know, the modular system. So, you know, I'm not a purist by any
No,
stretch. Like whatever instrument makes you want to play is the right one. Yeah,
you've done well though to come from that start to where you are now. It's really good.
long and grueling, right?
Yeah,
Lots of
but
ups and downs. it's it wasn't a phase. Let's say that.
No, but that's how you
It's
get
always
better.
something that I felt like I had to do, and I still feel that way to this day. It's just it's so ingrained in me. Like it's who I am as a person. I have to create. I have to keep doing it. Um, I don't know why exactly, but it just I'm just so driven to keep creating music, like and regardless of whatever the outcome is.
Yeah, but I think the falls and things you have along that way, that's what makes you better, I think. And are you still learning? There's still things that you find that
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, one of my favorite feelings in creating music is finding an instrument that I don't know how to use. It's beautiful, like first getting into modular, and just having a system in front of you and trying to figure out what goes to what, and how frequency modulation works, amplitude modulation, and just all the different nuances of the modular domain. The most exciting time was when I didn't know what the fuck was going on, you know. And I find myself getting a little almost depressed when I feel like I know everything about everything, like synth wise or something.
yeah,
So I get really excited when someone develops something that's just new, not like, oh, here's our recreation of this 80s synth or whatever. It's like, cool, dude, I got 20 of those, don't need another one. Um, but like you develop like a completely new way to create sounds, I'm all for it, you
yeah.
know. I love
More
the
exciting, isn't
experimental
it?
nature, of music, whether that be get a bunch of guitar pedals and put them in a row and, you know, uh, take like a contact mic and glue it onto something and start hitting with sticks and just tweaking the pedals and just seeing what weird sounds you can come up with. Or, I have a song, Money and Sex and Death. Um, there's this sound in there. It's like this rising sound. When I say give us money and sex and death, it's like this. Like I took a water bottle, like Smart Water, and it was like about a quarter full, and I put a mic on it and ran it through my modular system and just blew on the top of it and ended up getting that sound out of it. So it's like moments like those, where we're just like heavily experimenting that I feel like it's the most rewarding. And again, I think it's more about the journey than the destination. The journey needs to be fun for me. I can't just sit in front of a laptop and crank stuff out. I mean, I could, but that feels like work. And using weird instruments feels like fun. It feels like art
Yes. More creative, isn't it?
for me. Like I said, I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I'm not a purist. And like, people are doing stuff with laptops that or even their phones that are just way better than what I'm doing. So you know Billie Eilish's brother using just like GarageBand or some shit. Good lord, you know. So again, no right or wrong way. It's just the way I like to do things.
But it's good when you hear stories like that about the water bottle. I think that's great because you think, "Whoa, that was that sound," and that's sort of like it shows your creativity that you thought of that even. And
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm always looking at things as if they could be an instrument. I wonder what that would sound like if I were to, you know, drop it or hit it with a drumstick or bow on it. Like I created some of my own instruments. I'll grab them real quick. They're right behind me.
okay,
Yeah, you know, like for example, I have some saw blades and nails here and some sandpaper, and it's got a little plug out there. So I mounted a microphone inside this pedal, drilled it
oh,
all
okay,
out, and then I'll run this into pedals or my modular system, and I'll bow on the saw blades with like a violin bow. Comes up with really really cool sounds, or just like
wow.
guitar strings, rattling around, and you can just kind of grab them and make little weird like sounds like.
Which obviously come through on a microphone.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah, when it's going through like delays and reverbs and pitch shifters and distortion and stuff, I mean, it's just like instant horror movie soundtrack. So I like building my own stuff. I like using stuff that people aren't using. It gives me like a unique sonic signature, I feel.
That is that's an amazing creativity you've got there. That's actually shocked me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I didn't expect that, and seeing the actual items rather than being just told about them, that's really good because that just kind of shows us not just creativity, it's the ingenuity that you're putting behind the thought and creating basically your own instruments, sound machines.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's really important for me to, have my own sound, So what can be better than making instruments that literally no one else has, you know? So,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of the reason why I started my modular company, Sacrament. My first module, the Crucible. If I were to try to describe it right now, 0.2% of the audience will understand what it does. So I'm not gonna
No.
bother. But I was patching one day and I thought to myself, man, I really wish I had something that did this. And rather than let it go, I grabbed a notepad and just drew it all out. And I'm like, this is how it would work. These would be the knobs. Here are all the different functions. And then I went and found an engineer and had it
Wow.
made. And you know, yeah, it's a cool feeling.
It's good because it's all too easy to use a standard low off the shelf library of sounds and use them, where you making your own sounds and obviously the your own equipment brand, that just lets you be in full control of what you're creating.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. And again, it's just so much fun to experiment. That's the most fun that I have in the process of creating is just the experimental nature of things.
That is
So,
that's awesome to know. That really is. Now I'm starting to understand where you get the sounds from in your music. Um,
oh yeah, all sorts of different places. Not my God. I use this old 80s Casio like so much. Like, I have these expensive synthesizers, but then I end up having something like this, that I
wow.
use constantly. It just sounds so bad that just it creates this kind of dystopian universe, with how bad it sounds. And sometimes I really love something just for how bad it sounds. Uh, where someone might opt for like a $5,000 synth. I'm like, I'll get this, $10 one I found at Goodwill or whatever, and
Yeah.
use the hell out of it.
Wow.
So no right or wrong,
No, no.
just whatever excites you, just try shit out.
And what's influenced your music over the years? What kind of music's influenced it? Band what
Like
band?
different bands and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Sure. Like Nine Inch Nails is a big one, of course. The album The Downward Spiral specifically. I mean, I think it's probably the best album ever created. And all the stuff from those guys around that time, like Antichrist Superstar from Marilyn Manson. Charlie Clouser worked on both of those, and Trent, and just the sounds that they were coming up with back then, and the way things were arranged, and God, it's so good. Um, on the other side of the spectrum, I grew up on like death metal and black metal, so bands like Death, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, onto more black metal kind of, so At the Gates, Cradle of Filth, Dissection, Demon Worgier. Those were kind of big in the background for me, like in my teens. And then recently bands like Thyro's Murder, Signs of the Swarm, Crown Magnetar. Just like the really really heavy kind of deathcore stuff.
yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, kind of, my tastes are kind of all over the place a bit. You know, um, Like I really like Silver Sun pickups. It sounds nothing like what I do at all. It's a very indie rock, but like the way they create music is super inspiring. Um, Again, really experimental. It's if you don't know who they are, it's kind of like Smashing Pumpkins esque
Yeah.
kind of, but like weirder and prettier, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, yeah, I don't know. My influences kind of come from everywhere, you
It
know.
might reflect them because your music is so it's none of them, is it? It's
You know, I
somewhere
my,
else.
my original goal was to kind of take all these bands that I loved, right, and kind of just mix them up in a pot. I'm like, well, what's the best thing about this band? And what's the best thing about that band? And what do I like about this? And it's like if I can mix them all up, maybe I can create my own favorite band. And that's always the advice that I give to musicians that ask me like, hey, I'm starting a band. What should I do? I'm like, be in your own favorite band. Period. Like, don't give a fuck what anyone else thinks. Like, just craft what you think is perfect.
Yeah.
And that's a tall order because I don't think any of us, as artists, ever quite get there. We're always like reaching for something that maybe it's impossible to grab. Songs could always be better, or the mix could be better, or this, that, or whatever. Um, it's funny because for every album I do, I'll write an initial like 10 to 20 songs, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be the album, and then I get in to start producing, and I almost never use any of the songs. Like by the time I'm done with the whole album session, like maybe one of the original batch stays in or whatever. So if each album is going to progress, it's almost like you don't even want the next one, you want the one after that. You know what I mean? So I'll end up writing just song after song after song, and I'll end up with those first 10 that I'm like, I feel are really solid. I'm like, okay, this is great, this is like what needs to be done. And then, as I'm recording vocals and putting finishing touches on things, I'm like, actually, I got an idea for a new song, and I'll just crank something out. I'm like, oh man, well, okay, this is the direction.
That's
Fuck all this other stuff. Fuck it.
yeah.
Okay, I gotta do this. And those last songs for me, like the last two or three that I write for an album, always end up being my favorite. For this new album, Devil's Work. Devil's Work, I Choose Violence, and Shoot to Kill were like the last three that I wrote, and I think totally just made the album. To help really tell the story
And I will
as
say
well.
they are so good. If anyone hasn't heard them, they need to because they are so good.
Thanks. Yeah, I was really looking to do something different. And it's hard. It's hard to do something totally different. You know, um, even with just like kind of genre mashup or whatever, it's like you gotta still put your own sonic signature on it, and you know, um, and pull it away from the source genres, I guess, or source
Yeah.
inspirations, and turn it into its own thing. And that's the hard thing to do, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And what about your lyrics? Where are you in what inspires your lyrics?
Uh, you know, uh, I feel that it's super important to be authentic and to just express yourself and like the feelings that you have. And while I have ideas and I might come up with like concept records, there's also something very me in all of it. Um, you know, and then Oblivion is a concept album. It pretty much tells the story of a school shooter. Where if Devil's Work was the manifesto, then I Choose Violence and Shoot to Kill is like the act. And then it moves through some other songs. Crawling from Cunt to Casket is just kind of focuses on the nihilism of everything, and it moves on to the locus of everything and Say Your Prayers, and that's kind of like the domino effect of you get these school shooters like Columbine, and
Yeah.
then you get these follow-ups, or people see it in the news. They grow up and they see it in the news and documentaries, and that idea gets instilled in them. They go out and start shooting up all their friends. Um, and then the album progresses into Après Toi le Deluge and Taxidermy, where you know the shooter ends up killing himself, which is, I mean, 99.9% of the time that's the case. It's a
Yeah.
kind of a suicide by cop, if not suicide by gun to the head. And that story, and not anyone in particular, but just the the archetype, the story of the school shooter is really interesting to me. And maybe because where I grew up, and when I grew up, being like a goth kid, and being called faggot every day, and
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you some crazy fucking stories. It was different in the '90s. Being like a weird kid that wore makeup and fishnets and stuff. You got a lot of fights, and I I get it.
Yeah.
I fucking get it. For me, I dropped out of high school. I couldn't take it anymore. But I actually understand where some of these kids come from. It's like obviously there's a line that gets crossed, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that these things aren't tragedies, because they are. Um, I could just, it's fuck. It's like, how many steps away from that was I? And that, I think that's the interesting part to me. It's like, how much further would I have had to been pushed? Or is there just something different in our genetic makeup, something that that makes someone kill where other people's don't? Like I look at like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer and Richard Ramirez, and it's just I'm always wondering, like, what is it? What switch is just not on? That's
Yeah.
causing these people to do this thing, and it's just weird. I guess I wonder where that switch is in me. And sorry, getting into pretty dark territory, I
No,
suppose.
no. But
But
I think
again, it's interesting to me. It's interesting. I'm not saying to go out and do it. That's the furthest from what I'm saying.
no,
With the
no.
album, it's more of like it's 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 almost an autobiography, but it's an exploration of what could have been, and it's also looking out at the world, and kind of being a mirror in a lot of ways. My mirror, like the way I
Yeah.
see things, and um, all together, it's just it's a purging of sorts, like a therapeutic purging,
Yeah.
where some people might go to a therapist and tell them, hey, I have these dark thoughts, and I'm not sure what to do with them. Like, as an artist, I know exactly where to put them, and I feel that the most interesting material, like lyric wise, that I can come up with tends to be my darkest thoughts. So when I write lyrics, most of the time I will just close my eyes and listen to the song, and simply start writing whatever words come into my head. I'll see things in my head, I'll describe them, and you know, but I guess I can also get inspiration from all sorts of different places. Even names of songs. Like, I might be watching a movie and someone might say something really clever. I'm like, oh, there we go. Like, that's a song. Um, like the album title "And Then Oblivion" came from a conversation I was having. Um, I was walking into a mall, and it was next to an airport, and there was a plane. I couldn't really see it, but I could hear it. Yeah, I was kind of next to a building, um, like standing right here, and this airplane just came right over the top of this building, and it was right above me. It was very, very, very close. I guess the airfield was like a block away.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh my God, can you imagine if that plane crashed? It would just be like you're walking in and then Oblivion, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's an album. You know, so I just have those moments where I'll say something and I pull out my phone and I have a little notepad of song titles, album titles, and so a lot of it comes from real world experience. But then the lyrics, that's I it's an isolated thing where I really need to focus and kind of let my mind go where maybe I wouldn't let it go on a daily basis,
Yeah,
and then push to go further, you know.
that's that's really interesting, and I like the fact that the album actually is in a way it's a story, and that's really
It
interesting.
can now, yeah, it can definitely be looked at like that. Um, where every song does like play a piece in the story.
Yeah,
Um, and I didn't initially set out to do that. It just happened, and it was actually quite shocking to me when I really looked at it. I'm like, oh my God, this is a concept album, you know. So I don't know where these ideas come from,
it's an
really,
interesting topic though, because I do understand what you're saying about have we all got that line, and then the switch comes on or off, whichever you want to see that, and then that's God knows what happens. But I guess we may all have that in some ways. We
Yeah, I
think
mean,
we have, but
we're all the descendants of people that had to do really violent shit, you
yeah,
know. At one point in human history, there were only a few thousand people left, you know. We had to really fight to survive. We are the descendants of survivors. Violent fucking psychopaths.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, can you imagine the landscape that people had to live in for most of human history? Like it. The psychopaths are the ones that are going to survive.
yeah,
So, now take us all and create agriculture and infrastructure and give us Amazon Prime and
yeah.
we get whatever we want whenever we need it, you know, make us bored. It reminds me of Fight Club. We're the middle children of history. We have no Great War. We have no Great Depression. Our Great War is a spiritual war. The Great Depression is our lives. It's like you don't have that thing to fight for. I don't have to wake up and hunt so it's no fucking wonder, that people fly off the handle and do some crazy shit. It's like we're built to do that, you know.
And especially when you're, like you said, the gothic kid, for example, who's picked on daily, constantly. At
Yeah,
some point, you crack. You, how much
yeah.
do you take before
Especially
you
especially
crack?
being an adolescent, you know what I mean? Fuck, dude. You remember that?
Yeah,
Just like everything's the end of the world, like you get grounded, like, oh, you're not going out this weekend, and it's like, oh my fucking God, it's the end of the goddamn world,
yes,
so take those heightened emotions,
yeah,
and you know take all these kids and mix them in a pot, and of course bad shit's gonna happen, you know, and then in the US, we have more guns than people, so they're gonna get their hands on it no matter what,
yeah.
it's not hard to find one.
But as you were saying, people with we're descendants of some real psychopaths and whatever, and you see this in certain aspects of life where I think you call it soccer, but we call it football. And you look at the
Yeah,
fights amongst teams and the players, and sometimes, and obviously the fans get bloody violent, especially with like soccer, as you would call it.
yeah. I mean that's just another aspect of we're also the descendants of you know people from tribes, tribalism.
Yeah, and it's still there.
My shirt's a different color than your shirt, so we're gonna fuck you up,
Yeah,
and it makes sense. So like I feel like sports, kind of it helps to facilitate that outlet for people that who need to have that tribe, to be in that tribe, be a part of that, uh, small, self-contained culture. and whenever you have people like assigned to groups, you know, there's going to be conflict.
Yeah,
Intra-group conflict. It's just the way it is. And in a way, sports kind of helps you play it out in a way that doesn't result in war.
yes,
Of course, there's going to be outliers. Like I've heard, your football, sorry, soccer players.
yeah,
I've heard stories of the fans rioting and
yeah. There's a film, I think it's called Football Factory, and it shows the kind of based on true life of the fans from two different teams, and they will phone each other up and arrange where to meet where the police won't be.
oh wow,
They fight on the match day. So
wow,
it's
all
and
right,
it shows them talking to each other beforehand, arranging where to meet.
yeah, that's nuts. I mean, but it's not unexpected, really. Just being human beings and having that need. If it fills something that's just ingrained in us.
Yeah, definitely.
I think people forget that most of human history was not like this. I mean, where we live right now is just a sliver, on the timeline of
Oh,
what we've been as human animals. You know what I mean? Um, we're born into this, so this is all very normal to us. But, if you really take a step outside of things and look at what life was like, for people from most of history, I mean, it's no wonder, we have biological drives to do certain things, like fight to survive. So, if you can't do that, you're gonna not know what to do with yourself, some people at least, more than others, so it does not surprise me that they're, trying to figure out where they can brawl,
yeah,
without getting
exactly.
cops involved.
Yeah, and they really hurt each other. Yet they seem to enjoy it because they go back again, and then during the week or whatever, they're back to normal lives, and that you wouldn't believe they were involved. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's crazy. It just shows you that society is an agreement that we make.
yeah,
It's a suit that we wear. You know, um, I'll tell you what, if you don't hurt me, I won't hurt you. We're gonna trade paper for goods
yeah,
and decide that it's worth something. I mean, it's all just something we made up. And of course, it benefits us greatly to not have to worry about getting killed every time we walk out of the house or
yeah. That's
whatever. But I'm not saying this. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a good thing. It's the best. This is the best time to be alive in human history. You know, um, which is kind of crazy because every time you look at the news, it's some other catastrophic event. Someone else is dying and terrorists and pandemic and this and that. And so it might seem like the worst time, but it's really the best.
It is
Um,
when you look back at history. It's been some pretty crap times. A bit.
oh yeah, yeah. God, I mean, it
Definitely.
wasn't so long ago that like you die from diarrhea from drinking water.
Yeah,
So it's in your 20s. So
yeah. It wasn't that
I
long
don't
ago. Um.
know.
So as we've both mentioned, it's your new album today. Um. And it's then the Oblivion, and then yeah, and then Oblivion.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then Oblivion.
So it's released today. It's your eighth studio album.
Is it?
I think so.
I have to count. In fact, I know I count that Fornicator, We the Fallen, or the Shadow, Icon the Adversary. Oh, Less of Heaven. Yeah,
Yeah.
eight. Number
Eight.
eight. God, man, makes me feel a little old. Been doing it for a while, right?
But it's been
Um,
3 years since your last album, hasn't it?
yeah, and I think that might be one of the shortest time frames in between albums. I'm not a music factory,
Yeah.
and while the industry it's like in order to navigate it perfectly, like you really need to be, you need to have something out every 6 months. I can't fucking do it. I need to have that feeling that I need to purge something.
Yeah.
It's like it's time for an album. Let's do this, and I need to get into a mode. It's not day to day chores and errands mode. It's something else. Where I have to go into a very specific mind frame and stay there. Until this project is done. And it's like creating universe, and you have to live in that universe until you give it to everybody. And then you can move on to whatever the next thing is, and your errands and day to day life, or even touring. Like touring's a different mindset as well. Um,
Yeah, I can
knowing that you have
imagine
to
it.
wake up a certain time, sound check, load in, VIP, get ready for 3 hours, do the performance, get back on the bus, eat, sleep, wake up, rinse, repeat, just different universes, and you kind of have to adapt to being in each one of them.
I've got to ask Nero, how do you keep your voice from being damaged? Because obviously your singing voice is very different to how
Yeah,
you would
you, you
normally
know,
sing,
it,
obviously.
yeah, the screaming, it doesn't really, you know, I don't really blow out my voice too often. What happens is I'll rehearse for a couple days and I'll sound like total shit for the first couple days. And then about the third or fourth day, it starts to really get there. And about the fifth day, on for the whole rest of the tour, it's fine. I don't have any
Oh,
problems. It just takes a few days of kind of getting back into it, especially if I haven't done it in a while, because I'm not like walking around all day doing that. You know what I
I
mean?
know, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm home, it'll be months where I'm not singing, or at least screaming. But yeah, I haven't had many problems. I don't know. And people ask, how I do what I do, and I don't know. You know, like I don't know what the vocal techniques are called or anything like that.
No.
Uh, all those things have been popping up over the past few years. People talk about like vocal fry and this and that. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I just do my screaming thing.
Yeah. Yeah. You just know, you know how
But
to do it, but you don't, if you think about it, you have no idea.
yeah,
It just happens.
yeah, I know it's somewhere like up here as opposed to down here. It's like a higher thing. But throat coat tea is good, by the way. I'll just say that, like that slippery elm tea. Like, but yeah, my throat won't be sore or anything after like maybe like the fourth, fifth day.
Wow.
Like,
You've got quite a deep voice.
yeah, yeah, I guess so.
And then
And
when
but
you
my
sing,
high pitched screaming, yeah.
it's so different when you sing. But I love the way you do that. It sounds so damn good, especially with the music you put to it as well. I mean, it's a perfect blend. It really is. I
Thanks.
mean, I can't get my wife to like that kind of thing, but but I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it sounds brilliant. And I'm not into like death metal or anything like that, but yours is somewhere just not over that edge, if you know what I mean. You're somewhere else. And
Yeah, there's almost a pop element in a way, like in the arrangements or something, because it's really important to me for things to be like hooky. Everything has to have like a hook. Um, whether it be like a riff that gets stuck in your head or just the way the arrangement is crafted. And while I love like really technical death metal bands that the riff changes every few seconds, and by the time you're done with the song you're like, wait, is this the same song? Like some of that's fucking cool. I'm not like a show off band. I'm not trying to like show off how many riffs I can create, and it's about finding something that's just dope and then having it repeat. I'm all for it. So I want it to have a more accessible feel in some ways, while still being well, what we are.
well, you've got a great sound. I can say that, Nero. And I love you. Your music is so punchy and powerful.
Thanks.
That really, really shines through. But I definitely think you're more unique than a lot of bands, and I think that shows from what you said earlier. You try and be the opposite to what others are doing, kind of thing, and I think you've achieved that. And I think that really comes through in your music, and I think that's what makes me like your music so much, because it is different. It's not run of the mill. It's not like everybody else's. You've kind of, fuck that. This is my this is my time, and I love that.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I
But
mean,
attitude.
as I said, it's like every artist goal should be to be in their own band, their own favorite band. Um, so that's all I'm trying to do is just, write songs that I want to listen to,
Yeah.
and while a lot of people really worry about, how the fan base is going to react, it's just like, I love my fan. We have like the greatest fucking fans in the world. You know what I mean? But like I have to think of myself first as an artist, when I'm creating, and I think it's even better for the fans to let me have just free reign and just let me loose, rather than try to pigeonhole me. And that's why I love my label so much. It's like they don't care at all. They're like, dude, just do what you do, man. Like, and we're happy to have you. And they treat us really great. And I hear stories about labels, wanting
Bowling.
bands to kind of put out the same shit over and over again. Like, hey, this song is really popular. Do more of that. And my label's always just kind of just like, I don't even know what you're doing. I don't understand it. I don't like it, but it's doing well. So keep doing you.
Yeah.
You know.
But I think your fans would understand that that's your MO kind of thing. It's just that's what you do. You do things different, and
At this point, yeah, I think that they don't know what to expect, and they expect that, like that. You never know what you're going to get with like a new single or a new album, and this album is all over the place, and it has a flow to it, so it makes sense or whatever. But if you listen to track one, then like track seven, you're like, wait, this is the same band, this is the same, um, or even like the last track, it's clean singing the whole way through, no screaming at all. I but that also kind of follows a pattern where the last track on the last few albums, is always kind of like the softer side
yeah,
of things. Um, so I don't think it's that unexpected to have a song that's like completely all clean singing all the way through. Um, yeah. Next.
yeah.
I'm
No, no, no. You.
a little lost.
No, no.
So
That's fine. Um, You're going to have a European tour this summer.
yeah, really looking forward to it. Playing a few places that we haven't been, which is always exciting. Spain and Portugal are on that list. Yeah, really, really looking forward to those. Of course, looking forward to being everywhere. I fucking love touring Europe. It's just gorgeous. I love having days off where I can wander around and
Yeah,
you know check out historical landmarks and do the whole touristy thing. Being from the U.S. It's just such flip from this reality to that one.
yeah,
Out here, no matter you can drop yourself anywhere in America and turn around and you're gonna see a Walmart, right? It's just the way it is. It's like everything looks the same. It's all fucking strip malls. They decimate everything and rebuild constantly. So you don't have any old, culture here for the most part.
no,
And Europe preserves its architecture, like for the art that it is, and it's something that I really appreciate, Like I'm obviously not the religious type, but I love visiting, the different cathedrals and like Notre Dame and when I'm in Paris and St. Paul's Cathedral in England and you know, it's just these feats of architectural art, and I appreciate it a lot. Um, but the fans in Europe, I mean, I think it's because we don't get over there very often, but they're fucking nuts. And you know, on the last tour last year, like every show was fucking packed. It was great. I'm really hoping for a repeat of that. Yeah, it's something I'm really looking forward to. I really love touring Europe.
I think it'll be fantastic. And if you like the historical things that are still around, I don't know if you're playing anywhere near York.
No, we're doing Scotland. We're doing Edinburgh for the first time,
This one is
which is
the north of
cool.
England, but a bit further down. But there's a place there. There's one street where they've preserved it, and it's still the old. You must have seen the pictures of the buildings that had the overhanging like part of the building, and then it was all black and white, black lines and white buildings. Well, the road there as well. The buildings are still there, and the road is still the original cobbled road. So it's the stones
Oh wow.
kept
Yeah, I
originally.
remember I was somewhere in England. I was on tour with Motionless in White on the I was with Skull. And I remember walking down some street that was all like, I mean, it looked like something out of like the 1800s or something. I wonder where I was because
May have
maybe it was
been
something
there.
similar. But it had the cobblestone road and like the
Very
old building.
narrow.
Yeah, it was very narrow. Yeah,
That
maybe
could
maybe
be
I've been
where
there.
you were then. Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll have to go through my phone, look for pictures. I'll send it to you later. Like,
yeah,
is this the
yeah.
place you're talking about?
It's like Malta. There's so many awesome things here for such a small place, and it has so many awesome historic places. I mean, there's and you were only here for one day, weren't you? Were you here for one day?
I was there for maybe 2 days. I mean, not long. I think we got there in the evening the day before the festival, and then we left like the next afternoon.
Uh,
So I kind of had the night, the first night, the day during the show, and then like just the morning before we flew out. I would have loved to have more time, um,
yeah, because on
because
the other island, it's the sister island. There's first of all there's a citadel which is stunning, um, really old, obviously medieval walls, etc. Um, but then there's a megalithic, megalithic temple that predates the pyramids.
oh wow. Oh, didn't they find like catacombs that predate like all the catacombs
I
as
believe so,
well?
yes. And there are catacombs in where you went, where Game of Thrones was, Imdina.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
there's another city, basically, literally you walk across a road and it's there. And there are the catacombs there. You can go in and there's
Oh yeah. Okay, no, I did go into those. But the ones I was really interested in were the
really old
really
ones.
really old ones that they found. I saw some news article about it, maybe like a month before we found out they were going to Malta. So I got really excited. I'm like, okay, I gotta go to this,
Yeah.
10,000-year-old burial site or whatever. I love going to catacombs. It's
There are
just
so many
they're part
things
of the
here.
European experience.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean that's fantastic to see. But I'm the same. I love history.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, me too. Yeah, you got a lot of Knights Templar stuff going on,
yes,
and
yes. Um, and think when I told you about the citadel, that actually was during the medieval times. There was the people from that island knew they were being invaded, so they all gathered. I think there's about 2,000 of them gathered in this citadel, thinking that the walls would protect them and the knights would be able to. And apparently, the Turks of those that time came and slaughtered them all.
oh wow,
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite a gruesome story, but it's an incredible place. I mean, the walls massive. I mean, how
yeah,
anyone got in there, I don't can know, but they did. But yeah,
wow.
excellent.
Well, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I
Some
sort
say, people say they had the like the Holy Grail was there or something.
yeah, all
Um,
sorts of things. 'Cause obviously, that's the knights were big here, weren't they? I mean, there was a lot of them here at one point. So,
yeah,
and
they were like the rock stars of their time.
They were, yes, yes, and I don't think they were even fighting as such. They were more medic knights, but I think they ended up fighting. I mean, they held off so many bloody invaders at the time.
Yeah, right. I think they started as one thing and kind of ended as another.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm definitely not the person to ask about this stuff. I have a vague passing interest, and I've read a little bit, but
yeah.
it hasn't stuck yet.
No, but it's
So,
such a small island, but yeah, full of history. But more about you. So, do you know when the tour is starting, the European tour?
I think it's July 2nd or 3rd. Starts in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Wow.
And it's the first time that Psyclon Nine has been in Scotland. I played a show in Glasgow. With Scold and Motionless in White tour. I didn't get to really see anything because it was fucking pouring rain the whole day.
It always does, I think, in Scotland.
Yeah, I was stuck in the venue the whole afternoon. Where every other show on the tour, it's wake up and uh, I'm gonna Uber to some cafe in the main town, and just kind of like absorb the local culture a little bit before sound check. And that day of just nope, you're not going anywhere. Everything's super far from the venue, and it's just pouring. So I'm excited to be over there and be able to explore a little bit. I think we have a day off. And then from there, I think it's London and then Spain and Portugal and then back to Helsinki. Helsinki's gorgeous. Love it. The Scandinavian countries are great. And then we get into a van in Poland. We're going to do Castle Party. And then from there, it's just kind of like a van tour throughout mainland Europe, ending with Amphi Festival, which we've never done.
Oh wow,
But I've heard good things.
I've heard that's very good. I was going to go one year, but again, I think it was COVID time that it was cancelled or whatever. But no,
Okay.
I think that'll be fantastic. Pretty
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
No, I love those European festivals. We played Treffen just 5 or 6 times, I think, at this point. And every time it's just fantastic. Um, so really looking forward to getting over there and doing those
Do you
for
have a good?
sure.
Do you have a good following, Nero, over in Europe?
I would say so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, more than the US, the
Really?
shows are just, every show we've done on the last tour is just packed, like completely packed. And,
Oh, fantastic.
you know, um, even in cities, we've never been to. So it was really cool to see a lot of fans coming out, in places where I had no idea how we were going to do. We had been a minute since we did like an actual European tour, but, it did really well. So here we go again,
Oh,
hoping to make this like at least a semi-regular thing.
that would be fantastic if you do that because it's good to get out there, isn't it? You can't beat
Yeah.
in front of fans. I would have guessed.
Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of fun. It's a departure from, touring here in the States, which, I love that I can do this anywhere,
Yeah, of
you
course. Yeah,
know. Um, you know, being from the US and having toured the US so much, there's not a lot of I don't want to say excitement's not the word, novelty. There's not a lot of novelty. You
yeah,
know, it's like, okay, we're gonna play in Seattle at El Corazon, and it's like, okay, I played there like 15, 20 times.
yeah,
There's this Thai place that's down the street that I'm gonna go to and get some curry. So I know every venue. I know where to eat. I know who to expect to see. And it's great. Again, I love being able to do it. But it's more of a rare treat for us to be able to go out to Europe and perform there. Even though we've done it many times over the years, it's a little more far and few between.
yeah.
We might do one or two U.S. tours a year. Where we do. We've done, I don't know, maybe like 5 European tours total. Since 2003. So it's good that we're being able to get into more of a routine of coming back out there.
And what are the venues? Are they the venues big venues or?
Yeah, some of them are, yeah, big like rock clubs, places you'd see like metal bands and stuff like
Yeah,
that, as opposed to like small goth clubs. It's more rock venues, which I dig. I dig like, playing more like, proper venues as
yeah.
opposed to, where we started off playing in the corner of a room in a goth club. So,
Fantastic, brilliant. I like that. Hey, so that's something to look out for the European fans. But don't forget the album, like we said before, it's out today, which is obviously going to be a few days back now. But for anyone who doesn't know, it is out. It's the eighth album. Um, Definitely worth getting and listening to. If you could say to someone who hasn't heard Psyclon Nine, listen to this track first. This will be a great
oh, see,
example of what we do.
that's such a hard one.
Yeah, I thought that would be.
Phew, um, Yeah, so many songs are so different on the new album. I always want to say something new,
Yeah,
but if you want to know what Cyclone Nine is like all about, God, I'd have to pick a couple, I would say maybe like Devil's Work or I Choose Violence or, um, Taxidermy, the final song on and then Oblivion, is just it's something I'm really, really proud of, but I wouldn't say represents what the band sounds like all the time, but
no.
it's definitely something people should check out. Um, I think the gateway drug is always Parasitic. That's
Yeah,
what a lot of people discovered us based on that song. And while I don't think that, that song represents us as a whole, I don't think anyone does. I think
no,
that different albums are different chapters, and through my life. And it's a journey, start at the beginning, work your way up or work your way backwards from the new album.
I think with Parasitic, I think what got me was the incredible kind of feeling you got from its video, the video you did for it. Um, the way you're looking at the screen and you're almost like it's like you're trying to lunge out of the screen when you're forward towards it. And I think that kind of makes you think parasitic trying to come out at you. And it's I think that would drew me in as well. It's that feeling that of the video that went so perfectly with the song. Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
creativity was brilliant.
thanks. We had a $200 budget for that video.
No way.
Yeah, we were coming off of a tour with our friends band Mushroomhead. They're like a big rock band in the US. Um, the keyboard player from Mushroomhead, Stitch, he, if anything, I would say he like discovered us. We were like a goth industrial band playing in little clubs, and dude found us, loved our band, brought us on these big rock tours, and that's what really pulled us out of the scene. So I mean, it's this dude a lot. Um, it was his idea, like we gotta do a video for that song Parasitic. I'm like, okay, at the end of a tour, we stayed back in Ohio. That's where Mushroom is from, and we went to this old, it was like an abandoned nunnery slash Bible factory slash Civil War hospital.
Okay.
And, Stitch had just had this hookup. He's like, we're just going to go here. We're going to guerrilla style this. He had this shitty camera. We spent like the entire budget, I think, on like candles and shit, from Walmart. Um, we got like a one camera, strobe light. Let's go. And we filmed the first take or the first day. We were going to do follow up shots the next day, but and we were literally on our way from the hotel to the location when I got a call saying that someone fell to their death at the location that morning. I guess there was some sort of fire or something. Keep in mind, it's the winter in Ohio. Everything's fucking covered in snow. There was no electricity running to the building. Um, So how there was a fire in the first place, we don't know. Someone was doing something on the roof, had to do with the fire. They fell, they died, and now it's a crime scene. The investigation. So
Oh,
we had Bert, and we shot the second day in like a haunted house that Stitch had worked at during his off time with Mushroom Head, like a maze, haunted house maze. So we just went in there and just shot in the different rooms, and that video ended up having something like fucking 8 million views before it got taken down. Um,
really?
yeah, so I didn't have a YouTube at the time. This was 2008, I think.
Yeah, I think it was
Um,
2008. Yeah.
and Stitch posted it on the Mushroom Head YouTube account, and I mean I saw some screenshots at like 7 million. I mean, yeah, it still blows my mind, that we had that many views on that video. Um, and it was right about 8 million, and it got fucking taken down. Mushroom Head got a new manager, and apparently they were cleaning up the different websites and stuff like that, and just said, "Oh, that's not Mushroom Head. Why is it on this account?" And just deleted it.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it was like without warning. We didn't figure out a way to transfer it to my account or anything. So I mean, yeah, it sucks. Like there's a fan re-upload that's been up forever. So, with like 100 something thousand views, but it's a fan re-upload, and
Yeah.
at least someone did that, you know, because it still survives. But it's kind of a bummer. People ask me why I haven't re-uploaded it. I'm like, dude, I don't want to start at zero, man. Like it's such
No.
a bummer. It's such a bummer.
Yeah. That's it. After all that, my God. And it is. I know you said it only had a $200 budget, but it did what it had to do, and it did it really well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, so many people discovered the band because of that song and that video.
yeah.
So, I mean, it definitely overperformed for $200, you
I was
know?
going to say that's probably the cheapest advertising you can get. 8 million views for $200. That's not bad.
Yeah, yeah. But, just certain things catch fire and other things don't. Man, it was also kind of like a different time, and that those views were over a very long period of time. Um, so a lot of people discovering us over different years, in different time frames. So, it's just a different landscape today as far as videos are concerned. And, I think videos are important. I think they're really important. So we're going to continue to do them. You know, uh, this is going to come out in a few days, but, we have a new video dropping today at 5 p.m. Uh, for the song Crawling from Cunt to Casket. Um, Filmed that actually in Detroit. And yeah, I think it's a fun one. Um, Not a lot of budget for that either, but I think it turned out pretty well. So go check it out.
I think sometimes the lower the budget can be the better because you do your best for that rather than relying on everything else that you can pay for.
Well, yeah, I mean, so we get like a video budget from our label, and I have used that in the past, to work with certain directors, and with all my different projects, I've done like quite a few videos over the past, like, let's say 5 years or something like that. And I paid a lot of attention to what, the cinematographer was doing, what the director was doing, why are we choosing this shot? What do we need this for? And I decided, rather than give my video budget over to, some director to do one video, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get my own equipment and teach myself how to,
Yeah.
do the cinematography, the editing, and everything, and then I can just do as many videos as I want. So the first one was Devil's Work, that I directed and shot, and the second one I also directed and shot. And I find it's another fun, challenging, art form. Like we were saying earlier, my favorite part of, my favorite instrument is the one I don't know how to use yet, because there's it feels like there's infinite possibilities before you get used to, that instrument and kind of really figure out what you like to do on it. And right now, film is kind of that landscape for me. It's filling that gap of I don't know everything yet. I'm learning as I go, but it's fucking fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. In a lot of ways, it's just like working with audio. So it's not completely foreign to me. Um, but
But
yeah,
also, it's
I'm just really enjoying. Go ahead.
what you're creating is coming out of your mind rather than you relying on a director to come up with more or less what's in his mind. You know exactly
Yeah,
what you want more than someone else, I would have thought.
sure, sure. And sometimes directors will have better ideas than me, or or at the very least, they'll think of something that I might not have thought of. But, if I'm doing things myself, I have more time to work on it. And of course, we have deadlines. Um, but I can take a little more time to finesse things and maybe include things I want to include. And if the shoot goes over a day, it's not the end of the world. I can pick back up the next day.
Yeah.
In most cases. So yeah, I like the freedom, and I like the fact that I'm doing everything. You know, so whether it's composing, mixing, mastering the music, and now, directing cinematography, editing video. I maybe I'm a bit of a control freak now that I think about it. It might be a problem. It might just be a problem.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It's what you're creating, and why shouldn't you have full control over every part of it? It's yours.
Yeah. No, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, so why not? Well, Nero, I
Uh,
could talk to you all day, but I know you've probably got other things to do. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
no, just check out the video. It comes out today. Listen to the album. It's streaming everywhere. Go steal it at a store if you can find it. And then see you at the upcoming shows. We got another tour announcement that's coming up soon.
Excellent.
Um, so keep your eyes peeled. And hey, thanks for having me, man.
No problem at all, Nero. No problem at all. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and talking to you. And like I said, I could talk to you all day. You're so interesting. Um, so it's been brilliant,
Thanks.
absolutely brilliant. So I'll say goodbye and thank you very much for that. Thanks, Nero.
Hey, thank you, man. Take care.